look like a schlub tonight. I only know a few Jewish words, and I think that's one of them.
Jewish?
Jewish.
Oh.
Schlub. I look like a schlub.
A schlub. Well, this is my anti-Valentine's shirt.
Catch lobs not feeling.
Shout out Anna Melissa for the gear. Obviously, I'm in my Way of Void colorway.
Yeah, I love it.
My Miami.
I'm throwing it back. What year is it? We're in 2020 now. 13. I'm throwing it back 13 years.
13 whole years?
I actually got this
I don't know if you
9 years ago. I stole this from my husband when we were still when we were first dating.
We were first dating?
Yeah, when we were first dating. He went to the CI apparel
you
garage sale thing.
If you stole it from him, you technically stole it from your future self. Because what's mine is yours, right?
Oh yeah, I guess that is how marriage works.
Did I just find a loophole?
Loophole.
I had he was at the time an assistant principal, but I think he later became a principal in high school.
I thought that story was going somewhere completely different.
No, he told me in high school that I was able to find a loophole for everything, and I guess it still holds very true judging by the conversation that
I'm
we
able to
just
find
had.
a loophole for a lot of things too.
That's why we're friends.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, he went to the CIA sport apparel place. They do all the screen printing and embroidery stuff for a lot of the schools and colleges and stuff in town. They have this garage sale every year for the misprints.
Oh.
And so this, fun fact, was actually the Wrestler of the Week shirt for the Fargo South wrestling team.
Oh.
And this
Kind of goes with
this logo, yeah, I know, that's why I wore it.
Yeah.
So this logo actually is supposed to go on the back, and then the front is supposed to say Wrestler of the Week.
Oops.
So I think my brother has one of the actual the correct way, and I came home with this. He's like, "Where the fuck did you get that?" I stole it from
The
Nick.
garage sale.
No, I didn't go. He did. Because I also have a pair of matching sweatpants because he got two.
That's
and
awesome.
He told me they weren't for me, but I knew that they were.
Oh. They're not for me, but I'm gonna wear them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for this episode.
It's a good one.
Not just because of your shirt, but it's a Valentine's episode, and I got Casey a cool snack for the end. She's nodding because, if you're watching the video stream, she's nodding because she knows what it is already because it's sitting on the table in front of us, but sorry, I'm having a nose issue.
And my nose has been itchy all day. Which one of y'all has been thinking about me?
I know. Everybody. Everybody's been thinking about us. They miss us. We're finally back on track this week, FYI. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we're actually releasing on Saturday, not 4 days after Saturday.
Yeah.
But like we told you in the last
It's been a
episode.
rough go.
Yeah. Whew, we're trying to get over that hump, man.
Yeah. And your girl just got another job because, hey, ESPN, Barstool Sports, somebody.
Slam Online, someone pick us up.
Sponsor us. Pay me to just talk shit.
We need a fake audience in the background chanting sponsor us.
I'm sure we could find a little clip for that.
Let's do it.
All right.
Well, let's follow up this last episode because there's been lots of happenings.
So much my phone's been blowing up.
Happening. Yeah, I put into my ESPN updates and it was like, whoop, whoop, scroll. Yeah. But we we predicted in the last episode, which I super apologize because here I'm again correcting myself. Last episode I kept calling it episode 5. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was episode 4.
It was episode 4. This is episode 5. So obviously I'm still looking forward to
trailer. It's the trailer.
The trailer throws me off
because it's like half the length of a full episode.
It's the fifth episode, but it's not the 5th episode technically.
5 to 6.
4 to 5. Yeah, I don't. Whatever.
This is
who cares.
Not good for my.
Yeah, this does not compute.
Control Alt Delete.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one the best.
Yeah.
Okay. But I was excited for the first game that we predicted on because it was Celtics versus Clippers.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of nights ago. We're recording on Thursday. I think it was on Tuesday, if I remember correctly. Celtics beat the Clippers, which is what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
In 2 overtimes. So
I was waiting for that.
I know, that's the super deep breath. I have to digest it. I got to watch a little bit of it. Big back and forth game. Obviously Kemba Walker played wonderfully.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Tatum was the Celtics high scorer with 39 points. And Lou Williams was the Clippers high scorer with 35 points. He is obviously the 3-time Sixth Man of the Year. So we know that, Lou Williams is a producer for the Clippers. I was definitely not surprised to see him put up big numbers at all. But it was a battlefield of a game for sure. So I was excited I was excited the Clippers lost. Like I said, potential finals matchup depending on how obviously playoffs and Western and Eastern Conference finals shake out. But the fact that it went to 2 OT is definitely indicative.
Those are always fun games.
Yeah, definitely indicative of the fact that both of those teams, they're not really willing to get beat by anybody that's in their own conference. So
what night was it? I was doing something and my phone just kept blowing up.
I think it was probably Tuesday, the night before last.
Yeah.
But there's so much going on. I mean, the whiteboard is full. We'll just put it that way, people.
And it's small writing full.
Yeah, I tried to write pretty small. And then also in our predictions, we did some women's basketball. Louisville. I'm going with Louisville. I'm on the West Coast, the best coast. We put the Louis in it, so that's how we're saying it. That's
Are we Valley Girls now? Is that how they say it?
That's what I said on whatever episode it was. I'm a Valley Girl, Louisville. And then I can't not Valley Girl laugh after that. But they Louisville, like Casey said, hit NC State with the upset. I don't remember who I predicted. I'm pretty sure I predicted Louisville. I was pretty positive the upset was gonna happen. If I wasn't positive that was gonna happen, well, I am not surprised by it now for some reason. So
I think we both actually went with Louisville.
I think we did too. Now that I think of it, and then Oregon versus UCLA was my other prediction, but they play tomorrow, so we will follow up that prediction in actually episode 6. So it's kind of like a dual episode prediction, if you will. But
it'll actually be episode 6 too.
And yes, and it will actually be episode 6 because now we're back on track. I'm finally in episode 5, which is what I've been talking about since episode 4.
All right.
So, jeez.
I feel like if it's not you, it's me that's like ahead of ourselves. So.
Yeah, and I'm always like, I go listen to it when I edit, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm an idiot. I lied right there.
There's lots of times where, because I listen to it when it comes out. I'm not vain. I just like to make sure that I don't sound like a total asshole.
Yeah, just make sure I didn't say anything completely out.
I mean, there's been a couple times where I'm like,
out of pocket.
God, I could have fucking said that better.
I say obviously so much, you guys. That's the one thing I've noticed.
Or, I mean, I say I mean all the time. I've noticed it, ever since I've listened to it. Yeah. I mean, yeah. No, oh, fuck, I say it so much. I, want to fucking...
Stop saying it!
Grab my own throat.
That's hilarious.
Choke myself out. Spray me with that cat bottle every time I say it.
Follow up. Good God, this is, not Mostly sports
I
talk.
told
This
you I
is
was barely
mostly
holding it
bullshit
together
for
tonight.
now.
Barely holding it together.
Mostly bullshit podcast.
Yeah. Did we get all the follow-ups?
No, we've got 2 more.
Oh, yeah, okay,
We've
there we
got
got.
the men's basketball
Yeah.
follow-ups. She cannot see for shit.
You guys, I really can't.
Writing.
I'm okay to drive. Like, it's my near vision.
Yeah, no, well, in writing, especially because
Oh, God, we're so... Okay. Duke squeaks by. Duke just squeaked it by.
Yes, they beat FSU, which obviously, as you guys know, I picked Duke for that one.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Duke turnovers, but Trey Jones and the guys played well.
But they shot better than 39%.
Yeah.
Stupid
76. It was 37%.
Still, it's still shitty. That's not an excuse.
I'm just saying it was less than your joke was. But anyways, and then this game just ended like right before we started recording tonight. But Oregon did beat Colorado. They beat them by like only 8 points though.
But they beat them.
They beat them, and they also played at Matthew Knight Arena in Eugene. So I think that was another obviously contributing factor to the Ducks' success tonight. So just wanted to obviously follow up those predictions and tell you guys how right I am.
I like it.
But we have an interesting show today. We have a cool interview. But there's a couple of weird topics. Well, not weird. I don't want to say weird because obviously we love the WNBA.
Yeah.
But we just don't get to talk about it very much because they're obviously in off season right now.
Right.
And then NHL is another one that we don't get to touch on very much just because the two of us collectively don't know a whole bunch about it. But as
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know a bunch.
But
about
as
it,
headlines
I like to
come
watch
up,
it.
yeah, we like to watch it. As headlines come up, obviously we're interested. It's not something that we're never closed off to anything.
No, yeah.
But it's just not something that we collectively, like I said, know a lot of history about or anything. But as we both just agreed upon, very into, very open to, when it's on, definitely we'll turn it on and sit and watch for a while.
Yeah.
If it's on at the bar, I will definitely pay attention and whatnot. So.
Oh yeah, I know. Like yeah, I mean, my favorite part is when those gloves come off.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm with you on that. But kind of a scary moment for the NHL the other night. This is Tuesday night.
Very scary.
The St. Louis Blues were playing. Who were they playing? I can't even remember. It's not really that important. But Jay.
I think it's Baumeister.
I think it's Baumeister. I was listening to some audio clips earlier and they kept calling him Bo. So I think it might be Baumeister.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's Baumeister, whatever, we apologize.
They know
it's
who
probably
we're talking about,
incorrect.
I'm sure.
Yes, and yes, I'm sure people know who we're talking about. But he's 36 years old, had a cardiac episode on the bench, and kind of a scary thing. He was just like sitting there and then all of a sudden just kind of like fell over. And obviously his teammates, called medical personnel over immediately. But they postponed the game, which I think was the right move.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be played at a later date. And, just like I said, scary moment for those guys. I don't really think that age needs to be a huge part of the conversation because obviously as an athlete, you know that he's in pretty much good health and good shape. They have to get physicals and things like that before they're even allowed to play.
Right, yeah.
So just one of those things that you hope this is something that is just
a fluke.
Just a fluke, maybe just a scary moment. Hopefully not an indicator of anything more serious going on.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's totally healthy. Hopefully all of his tests come back normal and things like that.
I mean, you can hope for that, the best news out of the worst
situation.
This bad situation.
Definitely.
It's some sort of
well said.
He was dehydrated. He didn't have the right. He was.
And he just came off a
right,
shift on the ice. He had definitely just sat down from play. There are some situations that I've heard where people get sort of like a sports murmur in their heart where their heart does a weird rhythm. It's just a one-time thing.
Or like, I mean, I know like not like performance enhancing or whatever, but like pre-workout stuff or like Energizer or even
energy
like energy drink like
even.
things or whatever you choose, like those all have the ingredients in them to put you into a cardiac activity, a cardiac event of sorts.
Shit, you drink 3 Monsters in a day, you're basically having a heart attack.
I mean, we have some friends that are, we have one that's a physician assistant, and when she was doing ER rounds, she said that she had a couple people under 30 coming in that were having heart attacks because they drank 2 bangs in a day.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, obviously we don't want to assume that he was negligent in any way, but it definitely makes you wonder. It's one of those things
what played into it. Like I'm not saying
not pointing blame at all, but just one of those things.
Various things in the world that he's in, like consuming products that you think or know
or you think that they're normal, you think it's part of your
yeah.
daily routine or whatever. It's and a lot of that does go on. Athletes have their routines and whatnot that they do before they take the ice in this case, and it's just one of those things that you hope, like we said, there's nothing bigger for him.
Yeah,
because definitely scary to watch, scary to see like his teammates and obviously friends have to see like him be in that vulnerable moment when it's such like a normal thing for him, just getting off the ice, sitting on the bench, and then all of a sudden you have this crazy thing happen. So definitely we'll be keeping an eye on news for that to see how his health is going, and obviously a potential return. So we'll see.
I guess there's a light subject in the NHL. I saw this little video clip of, I think it was the Knights forward. He did the Vader choke with the bench. He was coming off the ice and he put his hand up and raised it, and the whole bench, they stood up, and then as he like threw them, they all collapsed down on the bench.
That is so cool. I didn't see that.
Thing. I'll have to send it to you.
So awesome.
So funny.
I love it.
I'm pretty sure it was the Knights.
I have to send that to Murph after you send it to me. That's so awesome.
And all black uniforms is who they were. I think that I read it right. That it was the Knights.
Yeah, definitely
anyway,
send it.
I'll find it and I'll forward it.
Yeah, send it.
It was funny. It made my day. I'm a Star Wars nerd, so I love that shit.
I love it. Also, some interesting news from the NFL outside of the whole Super Bowl conversation. But I think we all remember when Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph had their little instance. Obviously, the Steelers versus the Browns. At the end of the game, Myles Garrett ripped off the helmet of Mason Rudolph and then hit him with it. Which, as it's coming out of my mouth, I'm like, God, that sounds so childish, but I literally
am picturing, like, actually, I shouldn't say what I'm picturing. That'd be really bad.
Yeah.
I'd get hate.
No, I was going to say who cares, but...
I
would. Let's just not.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to touch that. I'll tell you in private.
Please do. But... you guys know I love Stephen A. Smith, and he went off about this. And, at a certain point, it's understandably so to kind of be like, what in the entire hell is the league thinking? Like, what an absolute, horrendous display of, unsportsmanlike conduct, disrespect to your opponent, all of these things. I get that. I get that all. But the one thing that I, especially as an opponent and as, when people play this game, we all walk on the field knowing exactly what our opponents are capable of. We know exactly what our opponents are setting out to do, which is win. And Mason Rudolph, at the time that it happened, made what I thought was a very eloquent statement about how he wasn't mad at Myles. He did not hold any animosity toward Miles for doing this. He completely, from what it sounded like, understood the mindset and why Miles came off in this aggressive way, which I thought, as I said previously, was not only extremely eloquent, but also very respectful to your opponent. Like, people are saying that Myles Garrett wasn't. I think Mason Rudolph just stepped back and understand, okay, this guy is so caught up in this competitive spirit of this game that when an incident happened that he felt was unfair, this was how he reacted.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it was all in the spirit of competition, which is why things got heated. And what Mason Rudolph was alluding to was just that he acknowledges that was coming from not an aggression towards him as a person, but as a player of the game that they play. So all of that taken into consideration, like, on paper, saying that he was reinstated after that kind of incident, it can look sketchy. But when you take all of that into consideration and look at the bigger picture, I actually think that the NFL made the right move here. We were just talking about hate, but I think I might get some hate for that. But I do think the NFL made the right move. I think that Myles Garrett, he had to sit out the rest of the season after that happened. That was, like, I think week 5.
Yeah, it was
or something
really
like that.
On.
It was pretty early on. It was definitely before halfway mark. And he paid the price. He has sat out that many games. He has missed out that many days of pay.
I mean, let's be honest. He's on the Browns.
He's on the Browns. For crying out loud. God. Like, he's on the Browns for crying out loud.
So
let the
why
man
are we
play.
really that mad?
Let
Let
him
him play.
I don't know. So that's just my take on it. Like I said, all encompassing and all things considered.
It's toddlers very rarely make their Browns to the Super Bowl, so it's kind of appropriate that, you know, he's acting like a toddler on the Browns.
I knew you were gonna go there. I knew you were gonna go there.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, kind of what can you expect? They're all grown children. We all know they get their heads knocked around all day, every day. So
and there's a lot of testosterone on that field, and
that
does
too.
some crazy things.
That too, exactly. So, speaking of testosterone, let's talk about some estrogen for a second.
Yeah.
Let's switch to some WNBA news because there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Obviously, it's trade season in the WNBA. Some big things have been happening. I don't know if you're familiar with the Phoenix Mercury, but they already have Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner on their roster. If I remember correctly, they made it to the semifinals of the WNBA championship last year. The Washington Mystics won the WNBA championship last year. But the Phoenix Mercury made it pretty far. I'll just say that, so I'm not on record saying anything that isn't horrendously wrong. But they acquired some new players. They got Skylar Diggins, who's new, and Bria Hartley, who's new. And like I said, they're going to join Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner, which is going to be a powerhouse. Well, we all know Diana Taurasi is just legendary. Definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Brittany Griner, definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Skylar Diggins, definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. And Bria Hartley is on the rise for sure. Skylar Diggins and Bria Hartley are both shooters. And obviously Diana Taurasi can run anybody's game. She can run the point guard like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And Brittany Griner's out that 5 spot. Obviously a talented big. I don't know. I think this trade makes the Phoenix Mercury my personal favorite for the WNBA championship this season. I think I might be okay going on record saying that. But
it'd be sweet to go to Phoenix and catch a game.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be dope.
Definitely. These women are obviously also talented, so I completely agree with you on that. And then also, we mentioned the Washington Mystic, But Elena Deladon re-signed with their team, which is the Washington Mystic, and Breonna Stewart re-signed with Seattle Storm. So, like I said, some cool things going on in the WNBA. Those girls don't get enough conversation talked about them at all, but they all deserve their coins, their recognition, their conversation, their awards, and all of that stuff. Yeah. They're all legendary. So, yeah. And then on the flip side of that, we've got a little bit of NBA talk. I guess the biggest thing is All-Star Weekend. There's not really much news going on in the NBA other than that. But our guy, if you're a Blazers fan, will not be playing.
Yeah, I saw that.
He hurt his groin in this last Portland game just last night.
It looked painful. He looked like he was hurting.
The thing that worries me is that when LeBron hurt his groin last season, he was out 14 games. And obviously I'm not the team doctor. I wasn't there. I don't know what's going on. But if it's a good injury, he's going to be out for a second. And that means that we probably won't make playoffs. And I know that's so selfish of me to say, considering Damian Lillard's health is on the line. You know what I mean? But it's like, why now? Why? And then obviously we all wanted to see him play an All-Star Weekend. I did love how, and only Dame is this classy, but I loved how he gave recognition to Devin Booker, saying that somebody good like Devin Booker should be chosen to replace him in the All-Star game. So I thought that was awesome. Obviously, don't expect anything less from Dame as far as, his classiness and whatnot. But in the All-Star Weekend, among the events that they have going on, they have obviously the celebrity game, which I'm like so out of the loop for some reason. I have no idea who's playing in the celebrity game, or like if they've even announced it or anything anywhere. So
you know what? Now that you say that, I don't know that there's usually something. There's usually at least something, some post, something from somebody that I follow about what celebrities are in that game, and I have not seen a single thing.
So I don't know if I'm just like that off the mark.
Maybe I'm just detaching myself so much from it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not off the mark this week or what, but celebrity game, Rising Stars. They also have the Skills Challenge, obviously the 3-point contest and the dunk contest. So those are the events of the weekend for All Stars. So there's definitely going to be a lot to talk about next week.
Yeah.
Hopefully some cool stuff happens. Hopefully.
I feel like that would be a dope thing. I'm
Team LeBron
so jealous
and Team
of
Giannis.
Mo. He gets to go
all
weekend.
Yeah. There's lots of athletes that are in Chicago for it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, just to be surrounded by it, not like to know that you're in the company of that much greatness, like in the same city as that much greatness at the same time, but to be going to these events and just like even just to like see it.
That's what I was just gonna say. Like, there's a lot of brands that are there too. Yeah. Like, you have Foot Locker, you have Nike, you have Adidas, you have all these different brands, Slam Online, like so many brands and people that are around the league that create content and document shoes and league fits and all the people that are documenting what the players are wearing and things like that. There's so many people that go into just publicizing the NBA league and the NBA players in general. So a lot to see and a lot to be a part of during All-Star Weekend. So and then also just closing out our little newsy news segment, the NCAA. In women's basketball, obviously the men's side of things is kind of mellow. I think people are just kind of coasting through their games as they get ready to disperse for March Madness in the start of March. But we talked about UConn last episode when Oregon beat them, and it kind of seems like UConn is maybe having a rough year. I saw a clip of their head coach Gino saying, you know, he basically was telling the press is it like, can we not lose a game? Like, are we not allowed to lose a game because we're UConn? You know, every team has bad games.
Every team has bad seasons.
Every team has bad phases. You know, you go through a stretch of a tournament or just coming off a tournament or whatever, and you play some trash games.
Growing seasons. Every team goes through those growing seasons where you lose a lot of seniors or a lot of...
Yep, totally.
You know, a lot of talented players.
Or you have a lot of injuries or something like that.
Gonna say a lot of injuries or sickness or anything like that. And you go through these subs and... Yeah.
So it happened again for them.
That maybe that this might be a growing season for them.
They got beat by South Carolina for the first time in school history. And I think, I apologize, I did not check the stat, but I believe that's the first time for both schools. You know, like, South Carolina has never, ever, ever, ever beat UConn. Ever.
Well, I mean, that would make sense if South Carolina is defeating UConn for the first time in school history.
Well, I'm just talking about, like, men's and women's.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Like, entire.
Yes. Sorry, I was not clear on that. I realized I just said everyone. I didn't say anything about, like, men and women. Sorry.
No, that makes
sports,
sense. Yeah,
yes. I don't think that South Carolina has ever defeated UConn in either sport.
Wow.
Men or women. Sorry. So kind of an interesting stat. Like,
that is cool.
You know.
We'll have to keep tabs on UConn a little bit.
Yeah, I like to follow interesting storylines like that of teams that, you know, have a chance to rise up or have a chance to kind of get knocked off their pedestal. I definitely think those games and those situations are interesting. So, but for this episode 5, we have a cool interview from an offbeat sport. Still very interesting. Definitely not like a mainstream sport. But definitely
it's
still
coming a little bit more mainstream.
Though. Well, and we kind of touched on this in the interview, but it applies to all sports.
Yeah.
Every single sport is in the weight room.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So it still applies. So we hope you enjoy the interview. Yeah. We'll be back afterwards for some cultural topics and some predictions, as always.
And some fucking snacks.
And snacks!
All right. I'm really excited about this episode this week.
And I was going to say, I feel like we need to do
our
this
guests, we go way back, like middle elementary school.
Somewhere like that.
These are your time of interviews.
Yes. So, this is super exciting. Brian Reisenauer, you started out wrestling and now you are professional weightlifting. Holy cow.
Talk about what you're doing right now. Like, what exactly is your position, so to speak, in weightlifting, and what are you doing?
So right now, obviously the Olympics are coming up. I am going to be passed over for that, but we're preparing for the next quad starting in 2021. So I'm just kind of preparing, hopefully, to be making some international team coming up then.
What does preparing entail for you? Like, is that a combination of training and recovery, or like, what does a daily look like for you or an Olympic athlete in that regard?
Sure. So for the most part, I lift twice every day, usually once in the morning, once in the afternoon, trying to recover in between, obviously, and at night as much as possible, but also, since I'm getting my doctorate as well, that kind of tends to put a damper on all of the recovery that really would be the best. But I try to make it from day to day.
That's insane. So tell me a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you make the switch from wrestling to weightlifting, and how does that tie into the your kilo for kilo that you've got going on now?
Oh,
Did it cut out?
I lose you guys for a sec. Oh, there you are. Okay. Nope, we're good. So I think I caught the whole question. So I transitioned from wrestling after college in 2012. I made the attempt at trying to make the Olympics in Greco-Roman wrestling. Unfortunately, I didn't succeed in that, and that was kind of my retirement party. After that, I kind of just relaxed for a while. I enjoyed not having to do sports for a little while. But the girlfriend I had at the time got very sick of me sitting around on the couch every day after work. So she said that if I didn't go do something, that she was going to leave me. I took that as starting to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually started doing CrossFit, which still with my competitive nature, it turned into me trying to do competitions. But I'm 5'2" and then maybe 120 pounds. I am not the giant behemoth that you see in the CrossFit games. So I learned quickly that that was not going to be a successful venture. So I then transitioned into weightlifting because they had weight classes. So that's how that really got me going into that. After a few years of that, I started to become a little bit successful, and some other people asked me to start programming for them, training for them, and that's really where Kilo per Kilo was born out of.
That's so awesome.
When you are training other people with Kilo per Kilo, are you strictly training them in the Olympic weightlifting that you do, or are you doing like various strength and conditioning activities as well for like athletes and whatnot?
I do both. I do strength and conditioning as well as Olympic weightlifting, but I do incorporate Olympic weightlifting in almost every aspect I do in one way or another. I know that it's not exactly the sport for everybody, but it really does teach a lot of great athletic movement, strength, power. It really is one of the best movements, in my opinion, in sports. So I do try to incorporate it as much as possible, but it's not very sports specific, so it is utilized a lot more earlier in the programming, and then it tends to taper off more near competition time or season opening.
Right. What is your favorite lift to perform?
That's a good question. I'm a little torn between those two. I enjoy the clean and jerk more, but my snatch is much better, which lends itself to who knows how many jokes, but that's my own opinion. I tend to compete better at the snatch.
No, I didn't even see it coming. As soon as you said that, I heard a lot of old high school voices running in the back of my head.
That's funny. Yeah, that's something as a lifter as well. I enjoy asking people what their favorite lift to perform is, because I feel like everybody has their, whether it's an isolated or a compound lift, like one of the ones that you just mentioned. It's interesting, I think, because everybody has their one diehard thing they love to do that they would do literally day in and day out if they had, if they knew that it wasn't terrible, absolutely terrible for that muscle. I know that we all have one movement that we would do. So
yeah,
that's kind of like my go-to fellow lifter question. But one thing that kind of came to mind when you were mentioning your training as well, what is like a training schedule for you when you're preparing for a big competition, and like on a week-to-week basis? So say like take us from like a 10-week out from a competition, all the way through. How do your lifts change throughout that course when you're preparing for a contest?
Sure. So most of my programming is periodized. It's usually in about 4-week blocks. Mm-hmm. So I do a 4-week of each period, and then we move on to the next one. So my training blocks vary between 16 to 12 weeks, which usually starts out with a lot of high volume. In almost every aspect, it's the lifts, but we usually don't go above 75 to 80% in the Olympic lifts. And then we do really high volume in more of the strength producing lifts, squatting, doing pulls, things like that. We do a lot of bodybuilding during this stage, kind of try to get not only a little bit of hypertrophy, but muscle endurance as well. From there, we move into more of a strength phase. We start to increase the intensity, lower the volume, probably start doing more 5 reps, 3 rep maxes, things like that. And as well as we're now going to start probably getting into the mid to high 80% for the Olympic lifts. And then we'll move into our absolute strength phase 4 weeks out from competition. This will probably mirror what a lot of people refer to as like a Bulgarian type of cycle. It's a lot of 1 rep maxes and things like that. Very high intensity, a lot lower volume. And then about a week or 2 out, you start to taper that intensity off a little bit, trying to prepare and get the body recovered in order to go into competition fresh and ready to go.
Wow. So, I mean, you guys actually lift a little bit closer to, like, what your contest goals are than what I even anticipated. I definitely thought that it was, like, one of those things that, you know, like, weeks out from your lift, you're like, okay, hands off, you know what I mean? But I think there's so much to be learned for just, like, the common lifter about, like, these various types of lifting sports, from CrossFit to Oli lifting to bodybuilding specific and things like that. So that's why I thought it was really cool personally to have you on, just because it's a different style of lifting than I do and a different style of competition than I do. And I feel like when we're like lifestyle deep into one, it's really hard to kind of switch gears and like even like open your eyes to what some of the other people go through. But then when you get a chance to, like you just explained, you're kind of like, wow, I guess there really is it's a lot more similar than you think that it is at first, I feel like. So
I'll be the first to admit, this body doesn't lie either. I haven't really ever been a lifter.
Right.
I will do cardio, that has kind of been my jam, but I think it's because I had never really been introduced or like walked through any sort of lifting at all. Right. And so I did a CrossFit thing last fall after I fractured my patella in 3 places. I thought that would be a really great idea. It wasn't. I landed myself in an immobility brace for 6 weeks.
So that's the story.
So that's the story. And then I just had foot surgery a couple months ago. Actually, 2 months ago today, I had foot surgery.
Oh, wow.
And so I just got to do like body weight squats again.
Yay.
Earlier this week. And so that has been really exciting. So I'm excited to start adding weight and have this one to start getting me on weights.
I'm gonna give her an earful.
Like, it's something I've always been in awe. Of, that like that's a lot of weight that you guys are lifting. Like,
and I think you'll agree with this. So I always tell people that say things like that I'm like, anyone can do that though.
No, and that's the thing.
Everybody picks up a weight for their first time.
No, yeah.
You know?
I think that's the mind-blowing part for me, is that like I'm watching like you or anybody else in the sport do this, and it's like, if I applied myself, I could really do that too. And like,
yeah,
it just takes the dedication. And like,
on that note, what would you say? Like, if Casey was coming to you as a coaching inquiry, what would you say to her in that instance?
Yeah, like a total beginner. Like, is that somebody that you take on ever or?
Well, first I would say I think it's important, since you're trying to compare yourself to like the high elites, that you really can't.
That's completely unattainable for me. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to reach that. I've never been that athletic my whole life. Like,
right. So it's really difficult, to want to try to attain those things. So you obviously want to pull those expectations back a little bit. To maybe I'm putting a little harsh there, but pulling those expectations back and realizing that you can't compare yourself to somebody that's 10 years into the sport or something like that, or those really high elite athletes. But what you can look at is what maybe you can do in the next year or 2 or 3 or however amount of time you have, and really be able to experience some sort of change. And that's really, when I talk to people that first come to me, that's the thing that I look for most. How motivated are they to like maybe do something a little different, to change behavior, even the way they talk. which I guess now I'm spilling a little bit more into my psychology part. But
Yeah.
the way they talk about change, the way that how motivated are they really? And I think that that's super important to look at, and that anybody, like we were just kind of saying, anybody can really go and improve. They can always get better, and that's all going to come down to, like, are you willing to put in that time? Are you motivated enough to really dedicate yourself to doing that sort of thing? Because it's not an easy task to show up day in and day out, especially at the beginning when you're frustrated because you have terrible technique. Your strength is not where you want it to be. You're breathing heavy when you walk in the door, that kind of stuff. It's hard to do. And especially when you're coming back from an injury. I don't know how many people that were like the best athletes I ever met that just couldn't come back from a simple injury because it's so difficult to do such a thing. So it really has to come down to what expectations can we manage, how motivated can we be, and how much time are you really willing to put in to get to where you're even remotely okay with the results you're seeing. Because some people say, hey, I'm totally willing to do all this stuff, and then in 3 or 4 weeks when they haven't really seen much of anything and they're not okay with the small results that they've probably actually gotten, they're not okay with it. And so that's when the motivation drops off because they're just not getting good enough fast enough.
Right. Yeah, they expect way too much way too soon, and they have got way too much to go in the journey to get there.
That was something I wanted to touch on too, is you're going for your doctorate in psychology, correct?
Correct.
How do you tie that all into your kilo for kilo? What made you decide to go that route? How does it all tie together for you?
Yeah, that's a great point, because I just would like to throw that what you're about to say is probably part of the reason why I went into dietetics, because I'm sure there's something about your sport that you're like, hey, there needs to be more education about this. So please tell us more about like what motivated you to do that.
Taylor, I wish that what you said was true. My psychology interest has literally nothing to do with any sports at all. It really is. It's actually a weird story how I ended up in psychology. I went into my undergrad and I did pre-law in psychology because I was told that psychology was going to be an easy major so that I could concentrate more on wrestling. That's how I started. That's how I started in psychology. I just went to college to basically wrestle and maybe do a little school on the side.
So you're telling us they lied.
They didn't lie. It wasn't too difficult of an undergrad, but after I discovered that undergrad in psychology was about the most worthless degree ever created, it turned out I had to go to graduate school. So
any more worthless than Associates of Arts degree? Come on.
I just think it's almost a glorified second high school diploma. That's how I.
Yeah, glorified high school diploma. I stirred up a lot of this is why we're called Sports Talk mostly, because we're gonna go on a tangent.
So after my undergrad,
one time I was grilled so bad one time on Twitter because I was like, congratulations on your Associates of Arts, you now have a high school diploma. Well, I didn't realize that a lot of people with Associates of Arts apparently follow me on Twitter, and I'm not sorry again, you guys, if you're watching this, because that's literally what it is. So I kind of like sit here and beam.
It's kind of like your ticket to party.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I'm not trying to dog on anybody, but that's what it is. That's what it is. Like, you go to school for a year and a half, you get a diploma, you're drunk the whole time, whoop-de-whoop-whoop.
I don't know a single person actually using an Associate of Arts degree.
No. And if I guess, I mean, that's pretty much what you just said, because I was going to say, if they have one, they're not even working in the field they have it in. Which is kind of, Anyways, back on the spot.
All right. So, like I said, after the undergrad, I needed a graduate degree. I was going to go to law school. And I don't know if Casey remembers this, but my father was a U.S. attorney. So I was going to go to law school and I wanted to do the same thing, you know, all that stuff, until him and a bunch of his buddies sat me down and convinced me not to go. They told me not to go to law school. It was a big mistake. So instead, I used my psychology degree and I got a master's in forensic psychology.
Okay.
And then I discovered that nobody cared about that either. So then I had to go and get my doctorate. So I applied for a doctorate degree. I got my master's in another psychology, clinical psychology. And so now I'm finishing my doctorate in that. So
What's
it,
forensic psychology and clinical psychology? Please tell us.
so forensic psychology is really the intersection between psychology and the law.
Right.
Whether it be something in the courtroom, some people work like, you know, with the police, doing some work that way. With the FBI, I know everybody loves the TV shows about the forensic psychologist that goes around and, you know, figures out all the crimes that all the serial killers are doing. And I can't tell you how many people have told me to watch some sort of TV show or another because it's what I do, and I have to play along and pretend like I'm interested in that. But so that was really my interest. I wanted to do expert witness testimony and trial consulting for cases that involve mental health. So anybody who pled insanity or wasn't competent to stand trial, things of like that nature. That was really my interest. But nobody hires a person with a master's to do that stuff. They told me to go get a doctorate, so I decided to go get it in clinical psych. I thought it would just make me a much more well-rounded psychologist, so that's why I decided to do that one.
Okay, nice. I like it.
That's
Unfortunately, nothing to do with sports. So
awesome. No, but that's all right. How do you balance the two?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because you're in the gym twice a day, you said. School still.
I'm sure there's some sort of meal prep that has to go on.
most certainly a lot of meal prep and probably borderline dangerous caffeine addiction.
I'm a mom.
What's your favorite kind of caffeine to consume? Are you a coffee guy, non-coffee guy?
I cannot drink coffee. I think it tastes like chalk. I think it's awful. I don't know how people do it.
So what's your go-to person?
Like any energy drink. I do drink like I'm gonna be Midwest here again and say pop. I drink pop.
Coca-Cola girl, Casey. I will die with a Coca-Cola in my hand.
Yeah.
I swear to God. Swear to
Definitely.
God.
I'm right there with you. Unfortunately, once the weight cutting starts, I have to go diet, but it still never leaves the regiment. I need it.
Zero, so die hard over here.
One of my friends is a competitor. Well, she did bikini and physique this year.
Katie.
Yeah, Katie, and she's like that too. Her Diet Coke. She doesn't. That's like her kryptonite.
Man, I'm glad I'm not the only
No.
one. Good God.
But I rag her all the time. I'm like, dude, that shit's gonna kill you.
Yet here you are breathing into me.
No.
Good Lord, you hypocrite.
100%. I don't claim to be perfect.
So, speaking of athletes that have common things that they do in their diet and training, what is camaraderie like to you with other athletes in your sport? Like, do you find that do you compete with the same people over and over again? Do you see the same people at events over and over again? What's that like for you in your sport? Because I know that's how it is in my sport. So
yeah, it's really similar in weightlifting as well. We see a lot of the same guys. I mean, I've made tons of good friends through it. Coincidentally, a guy that went to the sister school in Chicago of the doctorate school I went to was also competing in the same weight class against me from the very beginning. So we became friends quick because and so now he does sports medicine for USA Weightlifting now that he's done with school. And so, we became friends that way. We definitely get to see each other, so we get to know each other a lot. It's really nice that way. And what I really enjoy about weightlifting, which I didn't really experience as much in wrestling, was everybody wanted me to do well. which I found to be extraordinarily weird because when I wrestled, I wanted everybody to die. I even hoped they got injured though beforehand, so then I could, hurt them even more. It was
lost.
Yeah.
I just remember being like the most angry person if you lost.
Well, yeah, I can totally agree with that.
And you there was like a demon living inside of you that came out during matches. Like I swear to God, because day to day you were the nicest person, one of the nicest people that I know. But I would not want to. No. Yeah. I'd be afraid.
Yeah, so it's a completely different attitude, which is actually a little refreshing. I never got to experience somebody wanting me to make a lift, because at the end of it, it's everybody just wanting everybody to do their best, and then the best person wins, right? It's not always that way in wrestling. It's definitely, more of a dog eat dog sort of thing. So.
Well, the old, what do they say? If to be the best, you have to compete against the best. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you said, when you're out there, when people are missing lifts, or in my sport, when people are competing and they didn't diet right, shitty peak week, and they're holding lots of water and you can't see any of their muscle tone on stage, you're kind of like, well, man, that really sucks, because that's somebody who I know usually brings their best. And it's something that, like, especially for your sport, when people are out there breaking records and making record-breaking lifts, that elevates the sport as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
The whole sport gets pressed. The whole sport gets, maybe, a 15-second blurb on Fox or ESPN or whatever sports network. But even though it's a 15-second blurb, they talked about such a lesser-known sport that has so many athletes in it that deserve recognition for being incredible. You know what I mean? So I'm right there with you in the sentiment that you just want everybody out there to be doing amazing, and then also cheering for you simultaneously. It's weird, like you said. You're like, oh yeah, good luck to you too.
Yeah, no, like the outside looking in, it looks like a lot more positive of a sport, a more positive environment.
Right.
Like everybody's all about like beating personal records and just bettering themselves, and that I think in itself creates a more positive environment too.
Yeah, I agree. Back to me a second ago, but is that a Maverick sign that's behind you?
That is, yes. That's who I wrestled for in college.
Okay. I was like, what? Tell us about the Mavericks.
No. No, that was the mascot for MSU Mankato, where I wrestled in college. My ex-girlfriend made that for me, and I apparently decided to keep it instead of burning it, I guess. So.
I call it a positive out of the relationship.
Hey, yeah, see, I got something. But but I back to what you guys were saying. I 100% agree, and it even comes forth in like a more micro level. I always say that the platform has like its own energy, and you want people to be making lifts, and it builds that energy, and people keep making lifts. The worst thing that I've ever seen is when people start missing one after another, and everybody starts waiting around because the clocks are longer. Nobody's happy because they're missing all their lifts, and the energy just dies really quickly, and it's hard to get that momentum back and going. So that's like a huge part. People making personal records, it's like their own small victories, because after when you start going to these competitions, you realize like kind of where you stack up. Like in wrestling, at least there's always like a fighter's chance, like in boxing, you have that puncher's chance. You can get that one punch in and maybe you can win, and that doesn't happen so much in weightlifting unless somebody just has the worst day and doesn't make a lift at all. Usually they're going to make at least one. So everybody's stacked, usually at about the same spot, and they have maybe a couple people they can compete against. But at the end of it, what's really nice about weightlifting is that you can see your numbers go up. That's such a rare thing in sports. Like, it's hard to see yourself improve in basketball, in football, and things like that, because while, yeah, there's stats that can go up and down, it's really, like, hard to see yourself improve. Am I really getting that much better? Well, maybe the stats fluctuate a little bit. You might see a slight rise, right? But it's really hard to tell. But that's the one thing about weightlifting that's always 100% true. If the number is going up, you're getting better. It's a lot easier. So people get to do that.
And to your point, in a game like, for example, basketball, you're playing a different guy every night, where in weightlifting, you're playing against yourself every night.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're only going to be as bad as your worst lift ever. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. You are your weakest link. So, you know, that's kind of, I guess, the difference between the team sport aspect versus the individual sport aspect. Is that accountability of yourself, I think.
That has to come with a really big mental game too, though. Like if you have a bad day and you're just not making your lifts, or like you're talking about in competition, you're not making it. Like that has to really weigh mentally on you too. Yeah. Like you have to be mentally tough, not just physically tough.
Oh, most certainly. That's the one thing that's also about weightlifting that I actually compare to golf. Is that it's one of the few sports where you get to sit down and have a minute or two to figure out what you did wrong, which can be a great benefit, but also can really mess you up at the same time. How many times have you seen somebody, you know, like a golfer hit a bad shot, and then he's just stressing himself out, anxious and terrible all the way walking up to his ball, and then he does another bad one, you know? Yeah. And that can definitely happen in weightlifting. I've seen it happen, I think, way more often. Obviously, we don't, you know, get the same benefits as like professional golfers and all that. But it happens all the time. They miss the opener, which is supposed to be your gimme, the one that you always make no matter what. Right. And then you miss that one, and now you're panicked because now I have to try and make that now, and I already missed it once. And then if you don't make that one, now you have one more shot, and that's it to try and save this competition. Because if you miss that one, you're done. You don't get to post a total.
It's lift of the day.
Yeah. So it's huge. That unfortunately, that's what happened to me when I competed at Worlds. I missed my first two, so I really had to man up and make that last one, or else it was a really big waste of a prep and a competition and all of that stuff. You know, it goes down the drain in the span of 6 minutes, you know, and that's tough. So
yeah, no kidding. That's rough. No kidding.
Touching on Worlds, you've been to a bunch of competitions. What is your favorite one to date and why?
Ooh,
that's really tough. I'm gonna say, it's tough to say, but it's the most fun I had was, I believe it was 2016, if I remember right, 2016 Nationals. I actually took second, which is why it's hard for me to say. But I competed against a guy named Michael Fox. He was number one in the weight class at the time. Between me and him, we were very close, and we went back and forth the entire competition, and it was tons of fun. It's really exciting when you get to like really go and have a back and forth with somebody. We were trying to set, you know, American records, you know, we were doing all this stuff. It was tons of fun. I would say that's one of my most favorite competitions I ever competed in, and I lost, but it was tons of fun. So I would say that's my favorite one. My best one, I would say, is maybe the American Open, actually, just last year, I believe, 2019, where I competed in a new weight class. I had just moved up because they changed the weight classes. And I got to compete against a great lifter, I would say arguably one of the best in the country, in my opinion. And his name is Daryl Barnes. And me and him, we didn't get to go as back and forth as I would have liked, because he was much better than me at the clean and jerk, because he's much stronger and more technically sound. But during at least the beginning part, we competed a lot in the snatch, because like I said, I feel I'm better at that one. So we got to compete in that, and it was a lot of fun, and I posted the best total I had ever posted. So it's hard to say which one's my best, but I like to have fun when I get somebody that I really can compete one-on-one with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. You mentioned golf just a minute ago. I think earlier you mentioned football. Is there a sport that you don't play that you like to watch more than others, like when it comes to any like professional sports or anything like that?
That's hard to say. I'm super envious of like real professional athletes,
Me too.
like real ones.
I think that's why
They,
podcast.
Yeah. 100%.
well, it's because there's such a big talent pool in those sports, and you get to really see some like great athletes come through, and see what like real dedication and experience and all this stuff like can do in these kind of sports, especially like the team sports where you get a nice group that's cohesive and they work together, and it's awesome to see. As much as I love individual sports, that's my thing. I think team sports are the best because there's another factor to team sports that just don't exist in individuals, and that's like that teamwork, that cohesiveness that just doesn't come through anywhere else other than in those sports. So like my favorite to watch is football, but I enjoy hockey. I like basketball. It's cool to see how different skills and talents can like come through in different sports. So it's hard for me to say which one I'm super excited about, but I would say if I had to pick, I would say football.
Awesome. What do you think of Super Bowl?
I thought it was really exciting. I mean, it kind of seems to be like the Chiefs' milieu to make comebacks at the end. That's kind of, they really bring it out in the last to get comebacks. But I thought it was a good game. I thought it was pretty exciting down to the end. So, which is not exactly common nowadays. It's usually, I mean, I feel like every other Super Bowl is a blowout now. So it was nice to at least get one that's a little fun to watch.
True.
Yes.
True. Very true. I have to agree with that. So we had somebody else on the show from the Midwest. Do I dare take a guess?
Yeah.
No. Do I dare take a guess and assume that you too are a Vikings fan, or are?
Unfortunately, I am not.
Oh,
I like win.
Okay. I was like, should I tread lightly?
I'm actually a Green Bay Packers fan.
Okay.
I think that's one of the reasons we first became friends.
Go
because
Pack-O.
we were two of the lone Packer fans in a school of Vikings fans.
Yeah. But that's what's nice about being in North Dakota. You're not too obligated to one team, but I was a little bit obligated. My grandfather was a sergeant for a Green Bay Packer in the Army, so I kind of got that a little bit forced on me. But I don't mind. They win more than the Vikings, and that's okay with me.
They've been to the Super Bowl a handful of times.
They're
They've come out with a couple rings.
They're more fun to cheer for.
They are.
That's awesome. Well, obviously, we're a sports talk show, so we like to get a little prediction from everybody before they get off their interview. We have the NBA All-Star Game is this weekend. I don't know how much you know about it, but Team LeBron is facing Team Giannis, and then they drafted, their own teams from the pool of players that made it. So do you have a specific pick?
That's tough.
Do you like one player more than the other? Are you a LeBron lover?
It's hard to say if I'm a LeBron lover. That's a hard thing. That's tough to say. I will say, like I said, I appreciate like talent, and by far he has a ton of it.
Definitely.
But I don't know about the choices. But I think I would still pick LeBron's team for the win. That's my prediction. I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good one to watch.
Me too.
Yeah.
It'll be a fun one. I agree.
I feel like All-Star is always fun to watch.
Yes. Well, and trying to do all they can to make it more exciting and make it so the players can't just like one bomb each other out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
we'll see. Should be a fun All-Star weekend. But
I'm with you on that though. I'm taking LeBron, Team LeBron.
So you ruin your prediction for the later in the show.
That's all right. Everybody.
That's awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming on so much. I definitely appreciate it as, an NPC bikini bodybuilder. It's definitely, like I said a little bit ago, intriguing to hear about the different styles of lifting and the different aspects of competition in that regard. So I super appreciate you and your time. I know Casey super appreciates you and your time as well. So thank you so much. We appreciate you, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was great. It was tons of fun.
It was awesome. Have a good night, Brian. We'll talk to you later.
Good night.
Bye.
Interview. Brian, thank you for coming on again.
Yes,
Really appreciate
so
you.
much.
We'll definitely make sure to plug your socials into when we share the episode.
Into the description.
I was gonna say Facebook,
Somewhere
but we
up,
post
down.
way more than Facebook.
Yeah.
So we will share it into the
Yeah.
description of wherever we share the episode. So thank you again for lending us your time. And,
And literally, like, it was late for him.
and your psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was late for him for sure. So thank you again, Brian. Definitely cool to see how weightlifting spreads itself across like all other sports.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously, every kind of, every sport, like type of athlete is in the weight room at some point or another. So definitely, I think kind of a cool interview to give people a little bit more insight to that realm of sports and that, the competitive side of it too. So
It was fun for me to catch up with a high school friend kind of too. So.
Yeah, definitely. Always cool to have people that we have like linked up with
and
before
like he
the
wrestled
show.
with my brother too. Like we didn't touch on that in there, but so we graduated together. Brian and I graduated together, and my brother was a freshman when I was a senior, but he was wrestling with the rest of the high school team. So he would bus over from middle school and practice with the high school team and all of that. And so he and Brian got to wrestle a little bit. They were different weight classes.
Nice.
They got to wrestle a little bit in high school, yeah.
That's
So.
awesome. Yeah. Love those familiar interviews that we get to do. But yes, just closing out today's episode 5. Should I say episode 6? I knew you would love that joke.
Funny.
But for our culture segment, there's a few topics that I think are kind of cool that we need to make sure we touch on. But the first one is, like you said, a little bit bittersweet. Obviously, this man just lost his father.
Yeah. Who, in his own right, was
an amazing guy. Yeah, definitely. But The Rock's daughter, Simone Johnson, is joining WWE. Yeah. She's going to be a fourth-generation WWE wrestler. So, like you said, girl power. That's pretty dope. Definitely paving the way for more female athletes to get into that realm of wrestling and competition.
I used to watch WWE with my grandpa. My grandpa used to watch it here and there. I didn't not into it where certain people I know the Miz now because of Real World, and I watch the show because I watch trashy television. But this actually she's coming from such a powerhouse of a family that
you kinda can't not watch.
Yeah, that I kind of can't not watch.
I agree.
I kind of want to see this.
Yeah, I gotta see.
I want to see
totally.
this.
I'm with you on that. I am with you on that. I'm excited to see her debut and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. Definitely, we'll be marking our calendars for that. We'll be discussing that at a later episode.
Yeah.
But next topic, kind of on, kind of the more somber side, because we did talk about this. I think it was episode 2. We discussed this on kind of the premise that athletes are they're more than athletes. They're also people. They go through real life things. But we mentioned
they're not invincible.
Yeah. We mentioned that Chandler Parsons was in an accident. He was hit by a drunk driver when he was driving his vehicle. And he was waived by the Atlanta Hawks. So that lends itself to the suggestion that his injuries from this accident were significant enough to take him away from the game of basketball. And hopefully he has a speedy recovery and can return to just full day-to-day health, let alone returning to the court, but just
have you heard
normal
about
health.
What his condition is right now? I guess I haven't really looked into it.
He was suiting up for Atlanta. He was, on the bench with them and stuff like that. But obviously not playing. I think one of his most significant injuries is concussion related.
Well, and didn't he have pretty significant TMI too?
And yeah, and I felt like there was something with like a hip or something like that too, something like that.
Yeah.
So again, I can't recall. I think we mentioned it in the other episode, but yeah, that just kind of super sad, and wishing him a speedy recovery. But on the brighter side of things,
some more girl power.
Yes, yeah. Jennifer King was hired as the Redskins coaching intern. She's the first African American female full-year intern in the NFL ever. So that's an amazing thing that she has accomplished and that the Redskins have recognized her as.
Yeah.
So goes along with our previous female conversations of females doing cool things in particularly the NFL. But had to give her a mention. Definitely one of those things comes across your screen that you're kind of like, go her.
Yeah.
So had to make sure we mentioned that. And then this last one is a little weird. I know you were a little taken aback by it when I was
Blew
first
my fucking mind.
writing it
Yeah.
on the whiteboard where we wrote our topics. But North Korea has some crazy basketball rules that have been like making the rounds on like social media in conversations about basketball.
And you said that you actually looked this up.
I looked
you
it up.
Verified that this is legit.
I looked it up. I had to.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. Too many people were sending it to me, and I actually, to the first couple people, I'm like, that's not real. Like, this is
can't
stupid.
be. This is ridiculous.
And finally, by like the third or fourth person, I'm like, okay, let me look. And so I Google, and of course I start typing North Korea, and like the third or fourth thing that came up in the suggestions was basketball rules.
Yeah.
So I knew right away before I even like hit the search that this is something people are like searching for.
These are fucking insane.
It's wild. Okay, so we'll just get into it. It's real. It's real.
Yeah, it's
I looked
real.
it up.
Yeah.
Dunks are worth 3 points. Field goals in the last 3 minutes of the game. So regular 2-point shots that are just regularly worth 2-point shots in the last 3 minutes of the game. They become worth 8 points. Like, what the...
8 points.
That's the most outlandish one to me, I think.
Field goal.
3-point shots become 4 points if the ball doesn't touch the rim.
Swish, baby, swish,
Steph
baby,
Curry
swish.
would have had, like, Splash Brothers would have been, like, phenomenally insane with that rule if the NBA would have had a rule like that. And then 1 point is deducted for missed free throws. Can you imagine the hate the Lake Show would have given Shaq if this was a rule in the NBA? Like, he would not be known as the legend he is. He'd be known as the reason the Lakers lost all their goddamn points. I don't know if they would have had championships.
I don't know if everybody really knows like how bad Shaq was at free throws, but
he was horrendous at free throws. Just to remind you guys, like, obviously it's in the stat books. Go look it up. But yeah, Shaq.
Or like watch a game.
If this was NBA rules, Shaq would have screwed his team.
He probably was he on? Is he on like a what's his like PR scoring, like all time scoring?
Know.
Is he
I'm
on
not
any
sure.
other
I know
all-time
that he
scoring?
only ever attempted 1 3-point shot ever. So
just a big boy on the court.
Yeah,
he's just a big boy on the court. He'd have been known for the most deductions.
Yeah, exactly. He would have had the most point deductions in his stat line. That's without a doubt.
That's funny.
But yeah, so that's what I have in my culture segment. I realize it's probably not the most interesting, but
no, I think that's a
there's
perfect
4
culture
of them.
segment.
I thought that
1
they sounded
point
cool.
deducted for free throws. We should implement that into the NBA.
I'm here
Somebody
for the 8
petition
points.
it.
If the last 3 minutes of anything and my point
I think
production
8 points is
goes up by
excessive.
60%, I will take it.
I mean, yeah, I'll take it, but like I think 8 points is a little like 4. I could do with 4, 5 even maybe. 8 is pushing it.
I agree. Like,
8 is
what makes you
pushing it.
settle on 8?
Because
I'll give him 8.
Because well, like here's my reasoning too is because you can have a game where you've got a really big decent spread. You've got a 20-point spread, let's say, and you're down to those last 3 minutes. You make 2 3-point shots and you've or 2 field goals and you've already come back from that 20-point deficit.
I'm wondering
within scoring range.
I'm wondering if
With
Dennis
one
Rodman
score.
had anything to do with this. That's all.
That makes total sense.
all I'm wondering. Because he's like an ambassador for basketball over there.
That makes total sense.
What if he was like, okay, here's how we should have done it, guys?
More like, here's how you get the fucking NBA's attention.
That
here's
too.
here's how you get at the Americans.
That too.
You want to ruffle some tail feathers? I'll tell you how.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dye your hair
That's
leopard
what I
print
think.
and
That's my
fucking
conclusion is Dennis Rodman is
dye-
behind this.
watch. They're gonna be dyeing their hair leopard print pretty soon.
Watch them all. Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay,
Leopard
well,
print
let's
pretty
close out
soon.
this episode with some predictions for
Yeah.
the people because you know they want them. Women's basketball, obviously, we said that Oregon versus UCLA plays tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
but Oregon State versus UCLA also plays this weekend. I'm gonna take Oregon State, and I'm not just saying that out of favoritism. I think UCLA is ranked, 2 seeds behind them. And I just would like to see Oregon State beat UCLA because I think Oregon is going to beat them, and I would
Mhm.
like to see both Oregon schools beat UCLA. So that's why my prediction is more in line with my Oregon versus UCLA prediction than it is more favoriting Oregon State in general. So
I don't really care either way, so I'm gonna go Oregon State with it too and just stay true to the state.
Cool. So I like that. And then in men's basketball, kind of off the wall, but I think this will be a good game. Kentucky versus LSU. LSU is known to upset good teams.
I was just gonna say that.
in big games. So
As soon as I saw it going on the board, I was like, oh,
I
know
know
who I'm
who
picking.
you're gonna pick, so I'm gonna pick Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm going with LSU.
Yep.
Yeah, but that wasn't even a question. I don't even like LSU, but I'm going with them because I know how they play. Yeah.
And then obviously in the All-Star game we have Team LeBron versus Team Giannis, and if you guys paid attention in the interview, she ruined her prediction at that point in time. So you know that Casey chooses Team LeBron, but you didn't know that Taylor also chooses Team LeBron.
Are you kidding me? You didn't know that Taylor also chooses Team LeBron. Like, if they listen at all,
They know.
they know.
Done. Exactly.
And
So,
you are
that's
so
the cat's here, just so you guys know. It's like, she's so dumb. Oh my
That's
God.
that.
They've probably been hearing her the last 20 minutes flit around and do whatever and just try and zone her out. But as Casey has been so lovelyful mentioning, I did bring snacks. It's our Valentine's episode. As you guys can see, my catch lobs, not feelings. I found
I
us
got feelings.
for the chocolate.
I mean, for a guy too.
It's kind of bent, but I got us a basketball box of chocolates, and
I love it.
I figured that's how we could sign off today. I want the milk chocolate messenger boy because
I don't care what one I get because I like
There's a
them
guide.
all. Are you kidding? Forrest Gump is like one of my favorite movies.
She's going with the box of chocolates line, y'all. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I
Happy
just like being
Valentine's
surprised.
Day.
Ooh, but I do like dark chocolate, and I know that that's what this is.
Happy All-Star Weekend.